Coming Home from Wednesday, a short story, written and read by Nigel A. James. The diplomat felt at home. He had seen it and done it all before. The same small talk, the same blue suits, the same false smiles, and the same clink-clanking, clink-clinking of glasses. All part of his life, a life that the diplomat loved, and he was enjoying the party. But then the diplomat saw her. She was on her own in a corner and looking at him. And the diplomat felt bad. He was back once again in a very bad dream. A dream he'd been dreaming for a very long time. He pretended to be happy to see her, but she just stared at him and said nothing. And then she left. The diplomat knew she'd be waiting for him. And then, after 2 or 3 shorts, the diplomat put on his coat, said goodbye, and started for home. It was already dark. It was winter. And as the diplomat walked home through the cold Viennese streets, he felt sure he wasn't being followed. He relaxed. The cold air was clearing his head. Maybe things would be fine. The woman was somewhere, but for now all was okay. The diplomat knew that nothing would happen that night. He knew the woman. He knew her habits. And so, as usual, he stopped off at Cedars for 1 or 2 beers to finish the evening. And then the diplomat carried on home. He had completely forgotten the woman. And then came the shock. There she was, in front of his house, and she was waiting for him. Together they got in a taxi and drove down to the river. The diplomat didn't feel good on the boat. Although he had never seen it before, he knew it. It was her furniture and her pictures. The woman's flats in Zurich, Stockholm, and London had all been the same. The diplomat had been to them all. But why a boat? This was new. Why not the Hilton as usual? And there, lying on the table, was a file. The diplomat knew it. It was his file. It was full of photos and letters. The file was dangerous. And there was the camera. It was the same every time. The action, then the photos, and then the letters. The woman had been blackmailing the diplomat for the last 25 years. What had started at fun had turned nasty. The woman was clever, and so the diplomat paid once again. There was nothing he could do. The woman had won once again. And they finished and laid back. The diplomat was exhausted. He poured her another drink. This was bottle number 2. The woman was beginning to feel tipsy, but the diplomat had kept a cool head. His drinks were all in the flowers. The diplomat was a very good actor. He was only pretending. He wasn't drunk at all. The diplomat had had an idea. The diplomat looked at the clock. Tuesday had turned into Wednesday. It was still dark. There was still a lot of night left. The diplomat looked at his watch. It was 3:20. The woman was asleep at his side. 10 more minutes went by. 3:30 in the morning. It was time to go home. Silently, the diplomat rolled out of bed, and then, even more silently, he searched for his socks. First one, then the other, and where were his trousers? The diplomat found them. He put them on. Nothing had fallen out of his pockets. His keys were still there. Then, after creeping across the room to the door, the diplomat found his shoes, then his jacket and overcoat. It was very cold outside. The diplomat was ready to go, out into the freezing Viennese night. He turned the handle, and he turned it again. Nothing. The door was locked. Where was the key? Where had the woman put it? Where was it? The diplomat felt his way round. He needed a light. Taking his lighter from his pocket, the diplomat lit it. He burned his fingers. He lit his lighter again. Again the diplomat burned his fingers. There was no key to be seen. In bed, the woman lay sleeping. The diplomat sat on the bed and thought. He thought hard. Where was the key? It was now 4 a.m. 2 more hours, and his wife would be up. Where was the key? The diplomat thought of the evening before. They had come into the room, and next, the woman had gone to the bathroom, and then she had come out, with nothing at all. Nothing. The key must still be there, where she had put it, in the bathroom. The clothes were still all over the floor. Quietly and quickly the diplomat started to search through the clothes. And then there was the key ring. Not one key, but 9. But which key was the right one? Keeping a cool head, the diplomat took the keys and tried to unlock the door. The first key was the wrong key, the second as well, and the third and fourth were also no good. And then came key number 5. The diplomat put the key in the lock. It started to turn. Soon he'd be on his way home. But then came the click. The woman was standing behind him, and she was holding a gun. This was not a very nice feeling. The diplomat was not very happy. The woman asked him where he was going. He told her he'd had an idea. The woman was interested. Fresh semmels and coffee. Not a bad idea. The woman smiled with an "I don't believe you" smile, but she had a better idea. The woman smiled again. She would go. Still holding the gun, the woman took the keys. Then, after taking a shower, she left. The diplomat was locked in. Again, no escape. But there must be a way. This time he had light. The diplomat could see. Then he felt it. Around his ankles there was a draught. But from where? It wasn't coming from the bathroom. Its very small porthole was closed. And then the diplomat felt it again. It was coming from behind a curtain. The diplomat drew back the curtain, and there was a door. A door to where? And of course it was locked. The diplomat looked at the handle. Easy to break, and now, with the woman being gone, noise was no problem. And all it took was a very strong kick. Behind the door was the galley, and at the other end was a door and a window big enough to get through. The diplomat wasted no time. Out of the window and into the river went the camera and file. He would be next. But then he stopped smiling. The woman had come back. He heard the key in the door. Within just 2 or 3 seconds the diplomat was under the table and praying. Hopefully the woman would believe he'd escaped. The woman wasted no time. She was angry. She started searching the boat. The diplomat sat as still as he could. He heard her moving around. Then she started coming his way. From under the table the diplomat saw the woman as she came in the room. She stopped right next to him. He stopped breathing. He was as still as a big block of stone. But the woman didn't stay long. She saw that the room was empty and left. It had worked. The diplomat, the woman believed, had escaped. The diplomat felt better. From the bedroom came the sound of the woman. She was making a phone call. Someone was coming at 8. And then the diplomat heard the woman going to the door. She turned the handle. She was leaving. And just at the moment, the diplomat's mobile started to ring. And it was loud. The diplomat heard the woman coming back. Now there was no time to jump out of the window. All the diplomat had were 1 or 2 seconds. But this time it was either him or the woman. Quietly, the diplomat put the still ringing handy down by the window. And then, very quickly, he stood beside the door. Then it opened. First came the gun. Then came the woman. And then came the diplomat's fist. And down it came at great speed. The woman lay on the floor. And then the diplomat answered his still ringing handy. It was his wife. The screaming was loud. This time his wife would never believe him, but she was a problem for later. The diplomat looked at his watch. It was 7 minutes to 8. Someone was coming. Quickly, the diplomat pulled the woman into the bedroom and lifted her onto the bed. She was only unconscious. The diplomat felt sorry. He hated violence, but he loved his life even more. And then, from outside, he heard the sound of a car. It stopped. It hooted twice. Then it hooted again, and then again. Whoever was driving was becoming impatient. The woman should be ready and waiting to go. But why the great hurry? And then the car tooted again. It was clearly impatient. The diplomat heard the car door being opened. Footsteps were approaching the boat. But now the diplomat was in a position of strength. He now had a gun, and from where he was hiding was able to see who was coming. And then came a mixture of shock and surprise. Coming towards the boat was not a man, but a woman, and the diplomat knew her, and that was the shock. They had been working together for a very long time, and now, because she was older, she was his boss in Vienna. The lady approaching the boat was his country's ambassadress, and she was the highest of all. And then it all became clear. The ambassadress was the link, and that's how the woman had always been able to find him. Now the diplomat knew, and he understood. The diplomat kept a cool head. Staying hidden, he waited until the ambassadress had found the unconscious woman before leaving the boat. And then, without looking back, the diplomat followed the river until he came to a bridge, and there he became part of a tram queue. Becoming a part of a crowd was easy for him. Always keep your head down was his rule. And at 11 o'clock he got home from a very hard Wednesday, and he arrived at his office just after lunch. But the ambassadress was absent. It was believed she was ill, and then later that day came the news. The ambassadress was in hospital. She had been involved in an accident. Another woman had been injured as well. The river, something about a boat, but no further details. The diplomat, too, was surprised. And then the question came back. Why the great hurry? The answer was simple. What had happened to the woman on the boat should have happened to him. Their plan had gone wrong. They had run out of time. Bang! The diplomat smiled and carried on with his work. The ambassadress never came back. She was flown home to recover, and life in the embassy in Vienna carried on as normal. Now, however, the diplomat was in charge. He had become the chargé d'affaires. Then came the spring. The invitation was nothing unusual. The Swiss ambassador was hosting a cocktail, and the diplomat felt at ease. Nothing unusual. The same small talk, the same blue suits, the same false smiles, and the same clink-clinking of glasses. All part of his life, a life that he loved. And then she appeared. The woman. She had changed. She no longer looked the same. Something had gone. And what was she doing here? Why the Swiss embassy? The woman barely looked at the diplomat, but then things suddenly changed. The Swiss ambassador had joined them, and of course he knew the diplomat well, and then the three of them started to talk. The ambassador was proud of the woman. She had written a very good book, a detective novel. It had sold millions, and because the woman was Swiss, this was a great thing for Switzerland. The woman, so to say, was the star of the evening. And the book? This was a brilliant book. It was all about a young diplomat and his affair with a much older woman. A story that had taken place all over the world. London, Paris, Vienna and Rome. And there was not only blackmail, but murder as well. And the book had finished on a boat in the centre of Europe. 2 dead bodies, an explosion, and the murderess free to kill once again. The ambassador said that it could have been straight out of life. The diplomat smiled. Was there to be a sequel? The woman smiled a weak smile back. Be careful. You never know who might be waiting for you. The woman then turned and walked out of the room. She didn't look back. No smile of farewell. And the diplomat frowned. This story wasn't over yet. He would have to be careful. The next chapter, he believed, was about to begin. Coming Home from Wednesday. Written and read by Nigel A. James.